The event is about to begin. Please turn off your electronic devices. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to a Centenary Dialogue with Aung San Suu Kyi, organized by the Faculty of Social Sciences, the University of Hong Kong. I'm Vanessa Sit from the Faculty of Social Sciences. First of all, I would like to thank RTHK for giving us consent to show Hong Kong connection on a story about Aung San Suu Kyi. This dialogue will be conducted through a televised transmission from Burma. The video and audio signals between Burma and Hong Kong will be very unstable. There will be interruptions during the dialogue. I hope to have your understanding. For this event, we have received more than 2,000 registrations. To accommodate as many participants as possible, we have opened up 4 venues in the campus. More than a dozen participants are now joining us at other locations. For the live dialogue session, we have received more than 100 questions. The panelists have already selected some questions which will be raised by those participants later. If time allows, the panelists will also take questions from the floor. I would like to remind participants to briefly identify yourself, speak slowly, and be precise. Since we would like to take as many questions as possible, each participant will ask 1 question only. You can address Aung San Suu Kyi as Do Su. In Burmese, Do is a mark of respect. Aung San Suu Kyi and Professor Ian Holliday, Dean of Social Sciences, are now joining us live from Burma. Hi, Professor Ian Holliday.
Good afternoon, Vanessa. Can you hear us clearly in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be with here with Aung San Suu Kyi today.
Okay. Yeah, to open today's Centenary Dialogue, may I now invite Professor Lap Chi Choi, Vice Chancellor and President of the University of Hong Kong, to deliver some welcoming remarks. Professor Choi, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the University of Hong Kong, I welcome you to the 8th Centenary Distinguished Lecture. As the name indicates, this is the 8th of a series of lectures to celebrate the 100 years of history that Hong Kong U has sustained. Today, we're most distinguished guest speaker, Aung San Suu Kyi. Su, thank you very much for your graciousness to take part in this lecture today. I wish to welcome you to the University of Hong Kong this afternoon, albeit over this video link. Ladies and gentlemen, to all of you in this hall, Aung San Suu Kyi needs no introduction, and as a matter of fact, this is true to billions of people around the world. For her selflessness and determination to fight for her people's rights, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. And she was being held under house arrest at the time. Her acceptance speech was read by her son Alexander on her behalf in Oslo. For decades, Aung San Suu Kyi has been an icon of democracy both at home and around the world. The fact that we need to conduct this lecture and dialogue via video link between Burma and Hong Kong this afternoon speaks volume to the unusual situations around Do Su, even till now, despite her release from house arrest last November. As I stand here, I should mention that we have had many great minds and distinguished individuals spoke in this great hall of the University of Hong Kong, and that each of them have left a mark in our 100 years of history. In 1923, the founder of modern China, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, spoke here at the invitation of the then president of the Hong Kong Youth Students' Union. Dr. Sun is regarded as an alumnus of this first and foremost University of Hong Kong because he studied at the Hong Kong College of Medicine, which subsequently became part of Hong Kong U. In his speech, Dr. Sun said, and I quote, "I feel as though I have returned home because Hong Kong and the University of Hong Kong are the birthplace of my knowledge," end of quote. 3 years ago, in 2008, the former President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton, delivered a speech in this hall after he received an honorary doctorate degree from this university. He, too, stressed the contemporary relevance of universities to societies across the world. Great minds think alike. It is therefore perhaps no coincidence that our distinguished speaker today happens to have the same conviction. Throughout her life, Daw Suu has been a firm believer in the importance of education and the value of universities as spaces for individual and social transformation. As a university, Hong Kong U has a tradition for scholars and students to think critically, independently, and freely. The university stands for the right to freedom of expression, collective freedom, collective thinking, and peaceful discussion. It underscores the power of positive and cooperative reinforcement of what we believe. And what we believe are the principles that Hong Kong U has always stood for and continues to uphold. And they are rooted in the university's motto, original in Chinese, 明德格物, to manifest virtue and to investigate things. Both phrases are taken from the Confucius classic 大学, the great learning. These four characters, the university's motto from the very beginning, were later translated into Latin sapientia et virtus, meaning wisdom and virtue in English. In speaking to us today, Daw Suu adds to Hong Kong U's long tradition of hosting internationally renowned academics and respected leaders on campus to share their knowledge and experience with our staff and students, alumni, and members of the public. In addition to the university's belief in wisdom and virtue, we are committed to sharing our knowledge and heritage and serving society and humankind so that we can make a difference to the world. Once again, thank you, Daw Suu, for joining us at the University of Hong Kong. We look forward to hearing your lecture and your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Please take your seat. Now we will listen to Aung San Suu Kyi's speech.
One of my favorite dicta is that people should not be categorized as good or evil, wise or stupid. It would be much more sensible to divide them simply into learners and non-learners. In between the two extremes would be a broad spectrum graded on the degree to which individuals are capable of correct assessment and understanding of the learning material at their disposal. Here, of course, I'm giving a very broad definition to learning. It would involve much more than what could be acquired from any one institution or from any one formal teacher. It would mean a process of gaining such knowledge and experience as would help us to cope with the challenges that life throws at us and to find ways of enhancing our own existence as well as that of as great a portion as possible of all the other occupants of our planet. To put it in another way, the highest form of learning would be that which makes us caring and responsible citizens of this world and equips us with the intellectual means necessary to translate our concerns into specific deeds. Surely such a view of learning is in harmony with the idea of education as conceived in the motto of Hong Kong University, wisdom and virtue. 100 years of furnishing the world with young people who have been provided with the capacity to think independently, to express those thoughts cogently and to use them for the betterment of our world is an achievement of which this university can be justly proud. The hopes of its founding fathers have been more than realized. At the foundation-laying ceremony, Sir Frederick Lugard hoped that the graduates of the University of Hong Kong would exert an influence which will be immeasurable in the future among the 400 millions of China's population. Little could he have envisaged such an institution as this one of today, internationally renowned and one that attracts students from all over the world who will one day exert an ever-widening influence on the futures of more than just one people. As I contemplate the achievements of Hong Kong University, I'm filled with deep admiration and also, it has to be admitted, with wistfulness. Whenever I consider the educational progress that has been made in other countries, I think with sadness of the deplorable state of education in my own. There was a time when educational standards and institutions in Burma were viewed with respect and envy by many countries in Asia and elsewhere. Rangoon University, 10 years younger than Hong Kong University, is the outcome of the amalgam of Rangoon College and Judson College, the Baptist College. The university rapidly became the breeding ground not only of bright young intellectuals, but of dedicated nationalists determined to free their country from colonial rule. Even as academic standards really and gained the recognition of long-established institutions in the Western world, so did the patriotic fervor of the students gain new momentum. Rangoon University became the vanguard of movements demanding equality and justice, and eventually, these movements were supported and joined by students from Mandalay University and from schools all over the country. The close link between political movements and universities became an established tradition in Burma. When the country fell under military rule, students were amongst the first protesters calling for the restoration of democratic rights. As authoritarian rule tightened its grip on the country, the position of universities as institutions aimed at fostering freedom of thought, expression, and association was steadily eroded. Yet, after more than 2 decades of totalitarian governance, it was again the students of Rangoon University who led the movement to free the country from military administration. This was the famous public uprising of 1988. Now, more than 20 years on, the aims of democracy and human rights, for which many students sacrificed liberty and life, have not yet been realized. In the meantime, the standard of education at all levels have fallen, and Burma is a country crying out for the potential of its people, especially its young people, to be realized. I might mention here that many leaders of the 1988 student movement still remain in prison today, serving unbelievably long sentences. Education should be available to all, not just to a privileged few. Education should foster values that will promote human dignity and guide human progress in a positive direction. Education should be a true learning process, not a machine for churning out meek, obedient people incapable of reasoning why justice and liberty should not be the birthright of all human beings. I congratulate the University of Hong Kong on its achievements on the human front as well as on its solid academic credentials, which have made it one of the most respected institutions in Asia. I look forward to a closer cooperation with both the faculty of the university as well as with the student body. I am confident that the day will come when we in Burma will be able to enjoy the fruits of real education and to share them with the rest of the world. This will be the day when wisdom and virtue will triumph.
Thank you, Aung San Suu Kyi, for your speech. Ian, it's now over to you, Ian.
Once again, Aung San Suu Kyi, thank you very much for your very important and stimulating speech. We are grateful to you for marking our centenary with this event. We're delighted that your first collaboration with a university in Asia to speak to students across Asia is taking place with the University of Hong Kong at the time of its centennial celebrations. We very much welcome your endorsement of our core values of wisdom and virtue. And we understand with you that both of these values have important social dimensions, that both wisdom and virtue are critical to social change in a positive manner. And we're grateful that you reminded us of the Burmese case and of our sister institution, Rangoon University, founded only 9 or 10 years after the University of Hong Kong. We're aware that in 1920, at the moment of its founding, Rangoon University was integral to the birth of a nationalist movement here in Burma. We understand that in the 1930s, your father, General Aung San, was a distinguished student who went on to lead the independence struggle in the 1940s. We know that in 1962, when the military government was first imposed on your country, it was students from Rangoon University who led the struggle against that imposition. And we understand that in 1988, the year of the turbulent 4/8 uprising, that again it was from Rangoon University, from that campus, that students went forth to seek a better future for their country. All of these things we recognize as part of our own heritage, our own social responsibility. And we remain determined as we move into our second century to live up to the social responsibility that places on us. I would like now to move to the question and answer section. As you heard, we have more than 2,000 people in Hong Kong. They submitted more than 100 questions to you online, and many people in the hall today would also like to ask a question. I would like first of all to greet my co-panelists. Professor Joseph Chan is head of the Department of Politics and Public Administration. Hello, Joseph. And Mr. Frank Ching is a noted commentator on Asian affairs who both broadcasts and publishes in Hong Kong. I'd like to begin with the first question. In your address to us, you touched on two of the themes which are really central to your personality and to your public persona. One is a commitment to democracy, and the other is a belief in education as a key social solvent and transforming force. So I'd like to ask you about the link between the two, the link between education and democracy, and really the role that universities might play in educating Democrats. Do you think that should be a core part of their mission? And if so, how would you advise us to move forward with that?
About democracy and education, I was trying to explain that, in my opinion, democracy and education are closely linked, because democracy is based on people, and the better educated people are, the more widely educated the public is, the better for democracy. And Professor Halliday also asked me whether universities should teach students about democracy. And I think they should, because it's the work of universities not just to fill students' heads with facts, but to help them to be better citizens of the world. And I think by doing that, you contribute to democracy.
Dosu, it's my great honor and pleasure to participate in this dialogue with you. One of your themes in your speech is virtue and wisdom. We all agree that virtue is the mark of a good person. In reality, however, virtue may be costly, and people may have little desire for it. Dosu, you have sacrificed a great deal
in trying to live a life of virtue and wisdom. Can you please say something to those of us who hesitate about virtue, who have yet to commit to a life of virtue? Please.
It would sound very arrogant if I was to say that I was full of wisdom and virtue. So I would like to say very simply that what I've always tried to do is to develop a sense of responsibility, to try to fulfill my duties as best as possible. And that, for me, is the biggest virtue of which I'm capable. I'm not sure whether I'm virtuous in the sense in which other people think of virtue, but I certainly put a lot of importance on duty, and I try to fulfill my duty as far as possible, and I try to acquire as much knowledge as I think it is necessary for me to carry out my duties. So in that sense, what I have done is to try to live with a clear conscience, and that is the biggest, best freedom in the world.
Thank you.
Also, it's a great honor to meet you here at this video conference, and I'd like to continue with this theme of democracy. As you know, much has been said about the need for a concert of democracies to strengthen cooperation among democratic countries. Also, as you know, Thein Sein just visited Beijing and called the relationship between Burma and China, China's relationship with Burma, as the most important diplomatic relationship for Burma. Now, do you see a trend emerging of non-democracies, such as Burma and China and maybe Iran, North Korea, strengthening their relations in order to make the world safe for authoritarianism?
It is possible that those governments which do not yet value democracy would like to look upon each other as allies. But I think in the long run, we must all go towards democracy, because that is the system that puts the greatest value on the people. It's not because we think that democracy is perfect, but because democracy means respect for the people, that we think that democracy will succeed in the long run. Because everybody wants to be respected. Maybe sometimes other things come before this desire and need for respect. Other things such as fear may stop them from working for self-respect. But in the long run, I think we will succeed, and I think that even governments will understand that only if they respect the people can they, in the long run, be able to respect themselves.
Thank you. I hope you're right.
Well, I think so.
Go ahead, please. Okay, I think that's enough. Now, we are going to invite questions from the audience. Beginning from this young lady standing in front of the microphone, please identify yourself, speak slowly, and be precise.
Hello, Dr. I'm Peggy Chan, Hong Kong U graduate with an adolescent daughter. My question to you is, during the many years of seclusion and isolation, how do you keep your faith and maintain a clear mind? What will be your advice to our young generation when going through hardship in life?
I'm going to mention a word which is perhaps not fashionable anymore, but it is very important: discipline. That's how I managed to go through these years of isolation. I led a very disciplined life, and that's how I managed to keep my faith. Young people these days perhaps do not put such a value on discipline, but if they only knew how much it would help them in times of trouble, then I think they would learn to value discipline a lot more than they do now.
Thank you. We have a next participant.
I'm Mei Ling Chen, Hong Kong Chinese. My organization is Business and Human Rights Resource Center. We believe good business does need to protect and respect human rights. My question is, Dosu, what is the biggest challenge to you, apart from education, to continue nonviolence campaign to protect human rights?
Well, the greatest challenge is to try to establish rule of law in Burma, and that means an independent judiciary. Suddenly I can't hear anything anymore. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll just go on. In order to do good business, I think we need rule of law as well. So it's businessmen who will also profit from the rule of law. We think that unless there's an independent judiciary and the rule of law, we cannot really make progress towards human rights and democracy, and we certainly will not be able to achieve the kind of business climate that promotes human rights.
Good afternoon, Suu. I'm Penny Lau, a Hong Kong U student. I would like to ask, because there are relatively few female politicians now in the world, I would like to ask from your personal experience, what do you think of women in politics? Thank you.
Oh, I think a great deal of women in politics. There are a lot of women in the National League for Democracy, and they work very hard, they're very effective, and sometimes I think they're a lot more helpful than the men. They are more modest and they're more reasonable. There are lots and lots of things at which women are better. And although I appreciate my male colleagues exceedingly, I must say that I love my women colleagues. And I think more women should be involved in politics for the good of the human race.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for taking questions. My name is Al Reyes with the Department of Politics and Public Administration. My question is very simple. What is your current position on sanctions against Burma and on investing in Burma? Thank you.
We have brought out a statement on sanctions, making it quite clear that as far as we have been able to find out, the economic sanctions have not really hurt the people of Burma much. But it seems to be hurting the regime to the extent that they wish the sanctions to be removed as soon as possible. So we have to accept the fact that sanctions are mainly political weapons, although they do have economic consequences. And we have to try to achieve these political goals that will make it quite unnecessary for any country in this world to impose sanctions on Burma.
Thank you.
Suu, my name is Andrew Rickards from Moonblue Capital. The question I have for you is, I understand, and it's a bit of a follow-on from the last question, that you're keen to promote foreign investment into your country. The question I have is, what if that foreign investment, the foreign investor has to partner with some of the businessmen on the so-called blacklist? Thank you.
Well, there are other ways of investing in Burma, I hope. I know that it is very difficult to avoid those businesses which are connected to the government, because it's those who have contacts with the government who get the best opportunities. But we would like the business world to investigate the possibility of linking up with other businesses in Burma who are free of government control and who do not fall into the crony category. Because I'm sure you can do it if you really work hard enough at it. Unless we can create, at the same time as political freedoms, economic freedoms in Burma, we are not going to be able to really achieve democracy.
Thank you. Now let's take some questions from the media. Those who are from the media and like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Yes, this gentleman.
Kevin Drew with the International Herald Tribune. My question is, there have been recent reports that Suu, you will travel around the country. I'd like to hear if you could confirm that. If so, if you've been given assurances of your safety, your security, and if you do plan to travel, when will you be traveling, where will you be going, and what will you be doing?
I hope to be able to travel out of Rangoon in a month or two, as soon as I've got rid of all the work that has piled up in Rangoon. I have not been given any particular assurances by the authorities, but I believe that it is the right of every citizen of Burma to have her security assured by the government. That is a duty of the government to make sure that all its citizens are safe and secure. Where I shall be going, I cannot yet say, because we're trying to work out a sensible itinerary, and as soon as we've decided on that, we shall make that public.
Thank you. Another question from the media? Yes, please, go ahead.
My name is Leah, a reporter from Voice of America. Also, it's a great pleasure to talk with you today. I'm just wondering, the Chinese Nobel Prize winner Liu Xiaobo is still in prison in China. As a fellow Nobel laureate, what message do you have for Liu Xiaobo and for other Chinese dissidents who are in similar situations? And also, if you do get a chance to talk to the Chinese leaders, I'm wondering, what would you say to them? Thank you.
First of all, my message to all those who are in prison in some way or the other for their beliefs, I would like to say to them, you must keep faith with yourself. That is the most important thing. If you cannot keep faith with yourself, you will not be able to lead a full and peaceful life, and a life of inner peace. So you have to keep faith with yourself. And my message to the Chinese leaders would be very simple. China is a great country. The Chinese people are a great people with a marvelous and long history behind them. You can afford to take new steps. You can afford to be daring. You can afford to allow room for all kinds of opinions. So that is my simple message. You are a greater people than you think you are. So please open up your greatness to everybody else.
Thank you. Let's invite some more questions from the audience. Okay, please raise your hand if you want to raise a question. Okay, this gentleman in the beginning, in the front.
Also, it's really a great honor to talk to you. My name is Stephen Cha. By profession, I'm a barrister at law. For political affiliation, I'm a founding member of the Civic Party in Hong Kong. My question is very simple. In the past 23 years, you have devoted all your time, your energy, your life to democracy. 23 years has already gone. Do you still think that the military regime will give up their power or will be willing to share their power with the people? If you do, what makes you so optimistic? If you don't, can you tell us what will be the next move? Thank you.
I do not think that most military regimes are willing to give up their power. And I think it is our responsibility to make them see that it is in the best interest, not just of the country alone, but of themselves as well, to give up the kind of power that does not bring respect with it. We want our military to understand that they would be very much more respected as a professional military that does not oppress the people. What we are trying is what Hong Kong University is trying to do. We are trying to educate people. I think we'll have to educate those who do not want democracy to the virtues and wisdom of democracy.
Thank you. Let's revert back to the media first, and then I'll ask you to raise a question, gentlemen. Any question from the media? Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, Lady Aung San Suu Kyi. This is Sarah Network from the Radio Free Asia. As you said that, you suggested the country of China, they have to open up to the people and let them to have a freedom of expression. But right now, we all understand that there is no freedom of expression, no freedom of the press, and no freedom of movement. So under these circumstances, can you give us some suggestion or recommendations for those of the people in China that how they can fight for their rights? Thank you.
Although you say that there's no freedom of expression in China, I do hear of many Chinese people expressing themselves, expressing what they think about politics, about economics, about social problems. So I think the Chinese people will find ways of creating freedom of expression. I think we all have to create our own freedom in the end. And the only thing I can say is that if you are trying to achieve freedom in China, you're not alone. There are many people all over the world who are trying to do the same thing, and we're all with you. And in any case, China, as a big country with an enormous population, should be at the vanguard of any movement like this.
Thank you. I'm aware that this gentleman has raised your hand many times, so I'll give the floor to you first and then to this gentleman standing in the middle. Yes, please go ahead.
Suu, this is Chen Xin-Yao, friend from the Linguistic Party's Professor Mr. Matthews' friend. Let me describe the situation of Burma under the competition between China and Western countries. China has her concern to avoid Malacca Strait blockade by India or United States in wartime. China needs Burma to practicing pearl necklace strategy in geopolitics speaking.
Okay, could you please be more precise, and we may have problem hearing you clearly. Can you make your question short and precise so that the lady can hear you?
Western people also improving relationship with Burma. So my question is, which side do you take? After all, we all have to take sides.
No, I don't think so. I don't think we all have to take sides. And if I have to take sides, I'll take sides with human rights, because human rights belong to people all over the world. And I think I must make a point that China is our neighbor. China will always be Burma's neighbor for as long as this world lasts. So our relationship with China will be the special one of neighbors, whereas our relationship with Western countries, which have been trying to help us to achieve democracy, will be a different kind of relationship, of friendship based on shared values of democracy. So I don't think we have to make it either or. We can be friends with the West, and we can be friends with China, each in its own special way.
Dosu, my name is Henry Poon, a school principal. You have been advocating nonviolence as a means of achieving democratic government. But regrettably, it has very little effect on the military government. Recently, we saw successes of People's Revolution in Tunisia and Egypt. To what extent do you think their experience can be adopted in your political campaign in Burma? Thank you.
We're, of course, studying the situation in the Middle East very, very carefully. We have to wait to see how things really pan out, because the Egyptian and Tunisian revolutions still haven't come to a conclusion. We don't know where they are really leading. Now, with regard to nonviolence, many people have said that, for me, nonviolence is a matter of morality. It is not. It is a matter of politics, quite simply. Because in Burma, government, the change in government, regime change, has been brought out through violent means for over a long period. And we want to put a stop to this vicious cycle. That is why we have chosen the path of nonviolence. We want to put Burma into a situation where change can be brought about, political change can be brought about without violence.
Thank you. The next question, please.
Hi, Dosu. My name is Zara Cameroon, and I study at the King George V School in Hong Kong. My question to you is there anything that you have done in the political world between 1988 and 2010 that you regret doing? Thank you.
Politically? No, I don't think I've done anything terrible politically. The only thing I can say is that perhaps we should have tried to get democracy quicker, but we've done our best. And apart from that, I don't think we've done anything really bad politically.
Good afternoon, Dorsey. My name is Natalie McDonald, and I am an educator and an artist. My question for you is one from the heart. What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? Very small things make me happy. I've learned to be happy with small things, such as, for example, the ability to be able to go to bed early one day. I think to myself, I'm going to go to bed early today, and that makes me happy. I think this is one of the things you have to learn if you live the kind of life that I do. You have to learn to be happy with little things and to treasure them as part of life.
Thank you. Okay. Nice to meet you, Doi Suu. Name is Jeffrey Yu, Hong Kong U graduate. I was in Myanmar last month. I talked with some of the colonels from the military government, and I did not see anything wrong, except I could not check the email, and of course went to Facebook in the hotel. Okay, my question is very simple and maybe very straightforward. What would be the political and economical system that would be most beneficial to Myanmar?
First of all, I must say I envy you having been able to talk to colonels. This is something we've been trying to do for a long, long time. What is the kind of political system that would be best for Burma? I believe in an open market economy. I believe in certain economic freedoms which will allow our people to develop economically as well as politically. But this is something that cannot be worked out overnight. We all have many, many economic advisors, but sometimes their advice is not really practicable, and sometimes the best advice cannot be implemented quickly enough to suit the situation of the country. So this is something that we have to take step by step. But basically, I believe in a free market economy.
Good afternoon, Doi Suu. My name is Jennifer Mian, and I work with Grameen Foundation. As you look ahead to the future, what do you see as the most important things that need to change in Burma so that the poorest people living there can see their lives advance and they can move out of poverty?
I'm an admirer of Professor Amartya Singh, so I believe in development as freedom. And I think it is only by developing freedom itself that we can help our people to get out of poverty. It's not something that we can do simply by looking to the development side of the equation. But I'm very glad to speak to somebody who is involved with the Grameen Bank. The NLD has been trying out small microfinance programs to help the poorest of our people. We think that this is one way forward, but only one way forward. Basically, we need to develop freedom and economic opportunities at the same time.
Thank you. Let's take a couple of questions from the journalists here, starting from this gentleman. Yeah.
Thank you, Doi Suu. I'm Greg Terode of the South China Morning Post. I'd like to follow up on the relationship with China. Do you yourself have contacts with the Chinese government? And if you do, what messages do you send to Beijing? Thank you.
No, unfortunately, we do not have contacts with the government of China. We try very hard. Some of the members of the NLD always try to approach Chinese diplomats at diplomatic receptions, but they somehow seem to be able to evade our people quite successfully. I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they would talk to us. I wish that the Chinese diplomats in Burma would let the NLD get closer to them. Perhaps Hong Kong University can pass on this message.
Okay, another question from the media, please.
Hello, my name is Kenji Kawase. I'm a journalist for Nikkei, a Japanese business daily newspaper. And I have another question concerning about China. And it's almost, we're approaching the 22nd anniversary from the Tiananmen massacre. And it seems like the situation is getting worse from this perspective we're looking from Hong Kong. And two things. It's from the perspective of China, why do you think the Chinese government is so afraid, or why are they taking this action of putting in a lot of people in the democracy movement or the human rights to jail or under custody? And the second part of this question is that people who were supporting the movement in Hong Kong for a long time, it seems like a lot of the people are feeling some sort of powerlessness. Things are not moving to the right direction, actually digressing. Would you please give a message to those people in Hong Kong who are supporting this movement? Thank you very much.
Are things really regressing? This is not the impression that we get. Of course, at the moment, because China is making such progress economically, there seems to be less interest on the political side. But I think things will change, because in the end, people want to feel secure. The richer they are, the more they start putting a premium on security. And security in that sense means that certain rights have to be assured. Security, rights, these all lead up to one thing: democracy and human rights. So I do not think that you should despair. And really, this is the impression we get, is not that you're regressing so much as that for the time being, the Chinese people are so interested in economic progress that they have not quite looked at the political side of the matter. I think that will come, and perhaps sooner than you imagine.
Here we have the last question from the media.
Dawn Suu, my name is Justina with Apple Daily. In 1989, students in China gathered in Beijing Tiananmen Square demanding for democracy, but they got cracked down on June 4th. Do you see similarities between the June 4th massacre and your fight for democracy? Thank you.
I don't think it is very surprising that long-established authoritarian regimes should resist calls for democracy. This happens all over the world. I mean, you can see it's happening in the Middle East now. But that does not mean that Burma and China, are in any way strange or peculiar, because these things have happened in our countries. These are sad events. These are not events that we will look back to as the high points in our history. But these are troubles that have to be overcome. And these are processes that we have to get through in order to get to where we want to, with a lot of hard work. I don't think we get anywhere just simply by sitting and wishing for it. We've got to work towards what we want.
Thank you. Now let's give the floor back to the audience, and I can take a few questions. The lady, you raise your hand first, please rise and identify yourself.
Hello, Dasu. My name is Marisa, and my question for you is, after working with different NGOs back in the United States with Burmese refugees, what message would you give to refugees living overseas that are experiencing hardships on a daily basis and have expressed wanting to even be back in the refugee camps where their basic needs are not met? And what advice would you give to them to remain hopeful and peaceful instead of resorting to violence in order to meet their needs?
I think they have to learn to rise to the challenges that life throws at them. Their life in the refugee camps was hard. Now their life in their new country is hard in a different way. They've simply got to learn to cope with it. I know that it's not done as easily as is said, but I'm sure they have many organizations and many individuals who are helping them to cope with the situation. I always think that challenges are interesting, and they're there to help you to become a stronger person. Perhaps the experiences they have gone through have made them more fearful of facing what is new and strange. So we have to teach them to free themselves from their fears. This is one of the main themes of our struggle, to free ourselves from our fears.
A question from the back.
Yes, thank you, Dasu. I'm Jocelyn Heng, a law student from the Faculty of Law from HKU. My question is, given the recent Arab Spring movement, which has received considerable Western military support, would you feel that the same level of external support is possible for Myanmar? This kind of intervention is possible in this situation? And is it something that you would personally want to see for this current situation in Burma? Thank you.
I quite frankly don't think that there will be any external military action with regard to Burma. And this is not something that we particularly want. What we want to achieve is national reconciliation through a negotiated settlement. And this is what we're trying to convince the new government of, that if it was something that they could not do as a military regime, surely they could do this as an elected government, even if we have to question the way in which the elections were held. This is an opportunity, and we would like the present government to take this opportunity offered to them to show that we do not need violence in order to change.
We have many hands, but at the moment I can only choose one, and then we'll give the floor to the media again. Yeah, gentlemen. Paul.
Dosu, my name is Paul Zhang. I'm a professor at University of Hong Kong. I have a very simple question. Well, you are the icon of Burma. What is your succession plan? What is your strategy in finding your successor or your successors who become icons of Burma for the cause and movement that you are trying to achieve?
Well, first of all, I've never been happy about the word icon. You know, I think of a very still image just been there doing nothing at all. And in my opinion, I've worked very, very hard. And so what I want to do is to bring up younger leaders who also work very, very hard and who are brave enough to face new challenges. What we want to do is to teach them to cope with whatever life throws at them. And this is the way in which they can learn to be leaders.
Thank you. Question from the media.
Ms. Suu Kyi, my name is Hawk. I'm an independent writer in Hong Kong, and I interviewed you at your residence in 1995 in Myanmar. It's very happy for me to talk to you again, and I have to thank the Hong Kong U. My question is simple. Youth unemployment is a big problem in many countries. Is this a problem in Myanmar? Are you doing something to solve this problem? You said in a speech that you have set up a fund to help small businessmen. Can foreigners invest in that fund? Thank you.
Of course, youth unemployment are great problems in Burma as well. And we've been trying to do everything we possibly can to help our youth forward. First of all, by capacity building, try to give them as much education as we possibly can under the circumstances, and also by trying to start up little projects in which they can be involved. We do not have a fund here in Burma for our youth projects, but we are going to try to work towards it. You know that one of the problems in Burma is that to be an NGO, you have to be registered. And the registration, of course, comes from the government. So unless the government approves of you as a social or humanitarian organization, you cannot get a formal registration. These are one of the many obstacles we have to overcome if we are to help our youth properly.
Okay, we have a question from the back.
Hello, this is Emily Rahla from Time Magazine. We've talked today about your country's relationship with China. I'm wondering how you're working with the world's largest democracy, India, and what's next in terms of that relationship.
I've been very frank about the fact that we have been disappointed with regard to India. We feel sad that India, which was always a very good friend to Burma and to the people of Burma, now does not seem to be as much concerned about our fate as we would wish them to be. Of course, there are many reasons for this, but we would like India to think back to the days when our two countries worked together to achieve independence, when the leaders of our countries were close to each other personally and politically. And I would like them to believe that the time will come when this kind of cooperation will be to the benefit of both countries.
And there's a question. Yeah, question from this gentleman. You just raise your hand, please. Stand up.
Darsu, it's a great privilege to talk with you today. I'm Mark Michelson, and I'm involved with public affairs. You talked about Burma's relationship with the rest of the world. Burma is a member of ASEAN and also the United Nations, and there has been some dialogue. Do you see any hope going forward with either of those organizations in terms of progress for some of the objectives that we all want to achieve? And if not, do you see any other ways of approaching them?
Yes, I do see hope. ASEAN is taking a greater interest in the internal, what they used to call the internal affairs of Burma now than they ever used to. And we, the democratic opposition, we have closer links, many more links with the ASEAN countries and governments now than we used to do in the past. So there's very much reason for hope. With regard to the United Nations, of course, it's made up of many, many nations. So in order to achieve consensus is really difficult. But we always think that there's hope. For example, quite recently, the United Nations Human Rights Council came up with a resolution which is very strong and which we were very happy about. We had not expected such a strong and clear resolution with regard to the need for certain changes in Burma. So there's always hope, but mind you, I always say, no hope without endeavor. If you want to hope, you've got to work hard. Otherwise, don't hope. It's no more than a daydream.
Thank you. Let's get a question from Frank.
Thank you, Joseph. Dosu, you've been talking about the virtues of democracy. Now, at a time when the democratic United States is widely seen to be in decline, and the undemocratic China is rising inexorably, do you feel that the very future of democracy in the world may be in question? That is to say, will some countries feel that the Chinese model works better for them than the American model? Thank you.
I think what we're talking now about is economic progress. Certainly the economic progress that China is making is incredible, and we're all very impressed by it, and we would all like our countries to improve economically at such a rate. But on the other hand, I think you cannot ignore the social problems that have been rising as well. We in Burma are aware of this. Let me mention something which perhaps is not widely known in Burma, in China and in Hong Kong. Many girls from the north of Burma have been involved in this human trafficking racket because there are many men in China who need wives and they cannot get Chinese wives. So they buy girls from Burma to be their wives. This is a big social problem. This is just one I'm mentioning because it touches us so closely. So I do not think we can just look at the economic progress that China has been making and say, this is the way we want the world to go. As I said earlier, I have great admiration for China as a great country with a great history and a people who are so capable and so intelligent and so hardworking. But I think we have to be a lot more open-minded than we would be if we were just going to look at the economic aspect of China. And I must just say a word for the United States. Yes, it has many problems, but because it is a democracy, there are many ways in which people could get involved to try to solve these problems.
Thank you. Dosu, perhaps I'll take this chance to ask a question of my own. I'm intrigued by an opening remark in your speech where you said that you think people should not be categorized as good or evil, wise or stupid, but as learners or non-learners. I'm wondering how you would describe the military leaders who had put you under house arrest for more than 20 years and also imprisoned so many student activists.
I would say they're not very fast learners. I think they're going to take, we have to be very patient, and I think they're going to take time learning. But everything that any of us can do to help them to be better, quicker learners would be a great boon to our country. I'd like to take a few more questions from the floor. Now I would
point to 2 or 3 hands so that you will know when you would ask the question. Okay, this lady first, and then there's a lady in the white shirt second, and then I think did you raise your hand before? Did you raise your hand before? I mean, did you ask a question? Okay, and then you. If we have time, we'll take the last one from the side. Thank you. Yes, this lady, please rise and identify yourself.
Dosu, my name is Lina Lee. It's a great honor to speak to you. I'm a Hong Kong U alumni. It's very encouraging remark you said. You asked the Democratic pursuers to keep up their faith. I'm wondering whether you, as a Buddhist, whether your faith has any part to play to uphold your noble ideals.
Yes, Buddhism has helped me a great deal. I was born a Buddhist, but I don't think we are born good Buddhists. I think we have to work at it. And I have come to respect Buddhist philosophy really deeply during these years of house arrest and detention, when I have had time to meditate and to learn to know myself. Buddhism, like any other really good educational process, is all about learning to know yourself, what you are as a human being and what you're capable of as a human being. And that helps a great deal.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yes, this lady.
Good afternoon, Dosu. I'm Li Meng, a student from mainland China. My question is simple. Will there be a day that you come to Hong Kong or Beijing to deliver a speech to students face to face? Thank you.
Oh, I very much hope so, especially to Beijing, not because I have anything against Hong Kong University or because I don't admire it deeply, but of course you know what the significance of my giving a speech to, say, Beijing University would be. I very much would like to see that day very soon in the future.
Good afternoon, Dosu. I'm Patrick Yun from the Hong Kong U studying social sciences. And I recognize that education is important, especially for the learners who want to know more about current issues. However, in Hong Kong, especially, some of the people do not have interest in current issue and politics. While there's a lot of critics about the nationalism, education is being imposed in Hong Kong, and is this a bad way? And that the student cannot know what is democracy and what is the good thing of democracy, especially after the implementation of nationalism education? Thank you.
I think any education that is narrow cannot really be as good as an education that is broad. And I think you've got to work at it. It's not just the educational institutions that help to educate people. It's the whole society. This is why I said that I look on people as learners and non-learners. You can learn from life, and you can help other people to learn from life. So you mustn't despair. You mustn't think, oh, nothing is going right, people are not interested. You've got to work harder to interest them in a broader universe.
Let's take a question from the media, from the back.
Yes. Hi, I'm Lester. My question is very straightforward. I would like to ask, what is your advice to the people who are fighting for democracy for a long time in Hong Kong or in China or even other places all over the world? Thank you.
I think the first thing is something that they've got to ask themselves. Why are they fighting for democracy? What are their beliefs? And if you're very clear about what your beliefs are, then you can go on fighting and you can always find new ways of carrying on the fight. But if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then you cannot be effective. So it's a matter of not just of faith, but also of thought. You've got to think out your philosophy, and you've got to think out your tactics and strategies very carefully.
Frank, you have a question to ask?
Also, you've talked about the importance of education. I wonder, though, what you think, if there might be a danger that education could turn into a tool of propaganda for the government. That is, if the government controls